to another episode of BuckShots with Trevor and Luke. Trevor Land to my right. I'm Luke Reimer. Once again, talking Bucks basketball. Talk what happened last week. We'll talk what happened. We want to preview this week. Just kind of give everyone a feel of what the state of Milwaukee Bucks basketball is right now. So Trevor, I don't know. I'll just dive right into it here. As we were recording last week, the Bucks were playing a game. They were playing New Orleans, and we are kind of giving score updates a little bit. They ended up winning that game 136-113. That was obviously the beginning of their 5-game stretch, 5 games in 1 week. But in that game, Giannis 35, 16, and 10 for a triple double. And I think the other note is Jordan Ora with 23 off the bench, right?
Yeah. One of the things that's also so interesting to me is, Embiid has had some comments recently about him and Kevin Durant basically saying, I think Durant's the only guy that can do what I do. Embiid has 3 career triple doubles, and I think Giannis has 2 this season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a funny note to me. But yeah, I mean, this is a good complete game. Obviously, giving up 113, not ideal, but when you score 136, you can give up pretty much whatever. And it's good to see that shooting from Nora. Obviously, defensively, that's where they need him to improve. But I mean, when he's shooting 9 for 11, 5 for 7 from deep, his defense really doesn't hurt you that much.
Right, and I was going to add on to that. Bucks got killed in this game inside by Jackson Hayes, who's kind of that middle guy. Not really starter, not really a bench player, but can kind of play a role. And that I think that just goes to show what we've been harping all year is the lack of depth at the post defending position.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because obviously, and we'll talk more about it later. DeMarcus Cousins, he played in this game, but it didn't really matter who the Bucks put on him. So that's a big thing too. It's not like, you can just throw Giannis at the problem and they just haven't. They're throwing everybody at the problem and nobody can fix it for them.
Right, which obviously, like you said, will be something we'll talk about here with DeMarcus Cousins in a minute. But Trevor, is there anything else you want to mention about this game? Anything you noticed? Are we good to move on?
One of the things that I found interesting about this game was that the Pelicans had 12 more free throw attempts. Granted, I don't know what happened. Josh Hart was 3 for 9 from the free throw line. As a team, they were horrible, but it's just something we haven't seen in the past, and that's just another indication of Brook Lopez being gone. We don't go in the post nearly as much as we probably should.
For sure. Um, so after that, I think both of us had this marked down as a win. When the Pistons came to the Bucks, on what was that, Monday, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
This game, Bucks lost 115-106. On the Bucks side, Giannis near another triple double, 31, 10, and 7. Drew Holiday with 29. But other than that, your next highest scorer is 12 with Bobby Portis. Trevor, what wasn't working? It looks like Grayson Allen, 1 for 8 on threes. When you were watching this game, do you feel like the offense was a little off, or did you feel like the Pistons were just having a great game?
I think it's a little bit of both. Sadiq Bey and Josh Jackson had career performances. I don't think it's a stretch to say neither of them will ever play like that again. Sadiq Bey has been good, but 8 for 13 from 3 with 34 points. Josh Jackson, 5 for 7 from 3, 9 of 13 from the field, 24 points. When your opponents are just hitting everything, especially in the second half when the game finally gets going to grind time, when you got to get stops, it's just demoralizing. And I think that took a lot of the sails out of the offense too, because instead of feeling like let's get this possession, you feel instead like you have to make up 3 points. And I think that mental aspect was what was more concerning in this game than any, poor shooting night or whatever.
Right, and then yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly there. That's what I was thinking. But this this is a big win for the Pistons. Obviously, when they can come back and take down the reigning champions, it's huge for them. They're now 7-30, and they're up to 14th in the East rather than 15th. So To me, this is just a case of it feels like the Packers every time they play the Lions, like they always get the Lions' best game. I feel like the Bucks are just going to get the Pistons' best game now. Within the division, within conference, within division. With the proximity, I think Pistons are always going to try to beat the Bucks, which obviously makes sense.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see where this Detroit team goes. Like, they just look like a bunch of misfits. Like, obviously,
Hmm.
Cade Cunningham, they think he's the guy of the future, point guard, whatever. But now the question is, do you build around him and Sadiq Bey? Because Bey has been good, right, this season. He's been
Right, he's
solid.
solid.
But, Sadiq Bey is also one of your best trade pieces. So do you build around Cunningham, use him to get some better players, or do you build around him and Cunningham and are kind of handcuffed in trades and free agency and roster positions? So that'll be interesting to see from a Pistons point of view.
Right, and just to add on to that, with how bad their record is right now, it'll be interesting if they get one of those top picks and maybe land a Chet Holmgren, which kind of fills that stretch four position that the Pistons haven't had in a very long time.
Yeah, and with so much going on in college basketball, I mean, who knows? Like Chet Holmgren probably should be going one, if not Paolo from Duke. But one injury, one bad fall can change all that. So it's interesting because I don't even know if the Pistons know what they're gonna do.
Right,
So this will be a developing story that will be somewhat interesting. I mean, like you said, at least they're not last.
right. So moving on from the Pistons, um, the Bucks had the Raptors come play in Milwaukee, um, where for the second game in a row, the Bucks lost to an Eastern Conference opponent. Raptors 117, Bucks 111. On the Buck side of the ball, Giannis was out of this game um, due to illness, not non-COVID. And then Chris Middleton was picked up that slack with 25 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Next highest scorer, Drew Holiday and DeMarcus Cousins both scored 15. And then you had, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. And then you had Sandro with 10 as the next highest scorer. So only one. I'm sorry. And Jordan Norris 17. Sorry, I'm misreading this all. But so so obviously with Giannis out of this game, Trevor, right? Everyone's gonna have to pitch in because now one person can replace what Giannis does, right? Did you feel like players who were in this game, starters, did they feel like they were doing a little bit more than they usually do, or because I was kind of on the fence about this. It kind of felt like they were just playing their roles, and you could definitely tell that you're missing Giannis, which is obvious. But it didn't feel like anyone was picking that slack up to me.
Yeah, and it was the Bucks. Unfortunately, they do this a lot. They really fell apart in the third quarter.
Yep.
I don't think a lot of people expected them to win, but they were up what 9 at half, and then they put up 11 points in the third quarter, and their defense was fine in terms of points allowed at 24. So it's just kind of to your point about the roles. When you have Giannis there, that's a guy you can rely on. Nobody can play off of him. When your shooters get cold, though, you can't just give it to Giannis, let him do everything. And I think that's what we saw in the third quarter. Guys started getting cold. They didn't know where to get the offense from. And, you lose by 6 as a tough loss. But I think this also shows just how bad the Raptors are, regardless of their record.
Right. In this game too, the Bucks 17 of 25 on free throws. You make 7 more of those, 7 out of the 8. You win the game. But to throw that on the other side, the Raptors were 18 of 26. So it was bad free throw shooting night, which is definitely weird to see in the NBA with both teams shooting under 70% from the free throw line. Uh, Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's always weird too because it's tough to judge, like especially games like this. Like Middleton was 6 for 8, which is good. Well, it's okay, but it's such a small sample size; it doesn't look good. Drew Holiday was 2 for 4. Like that's something you're not usually seeing either. Um, Drew Holiday just struggled overall too, except for outside the arc, which is kind of backwards. So
Right,
every free throw matters, and that certainly came back to nip us.
for sure. And then all I had to say too is I thought Wesley Matthews looked fine in this game. I know he's not the guy who's going to take us over the top. He's a guy who's played here and who can, at least run a little bit. He shot 3 for 7 on threes, 9 points, but really that's his contribution right now is 3 point shooting. So if you're taking, if you're making at least about a half of them, then I'm happy with this because we don't really need you to do more. But Trevor, is there anything else you want to mention about this game? I know it's a divisional matchup, and I think we both said that Toronto's a feisty team. They're going to give the Bucks their best shot, and try to build a rivalry a little bit here. But anything else you want to mention?
Just about Toronto, I'd be really scared if I'm a Toronto fan. Right now, they're the seventh seed. They're in the playing games. They have lost. They have beaten the Bucks twice by combined 10 points, and this game was without Giannis, and I think the game before was without Middleton and Drew. The Bucks are a very deep team. They're a very good team, but they don't have anybody in the post. Granted, neither does Toronto really, but they should be beating the Bucks by double digits. And the fact that they're winning by 5 points a game, um, just kind of instills that belief that I don't think there's anybody else that can match up with the Bucks. That we'll get into in the next game, but Toronto used to be the Achilles heel, and they aren't this year.
Right. And before we get into the next game, we'll talk about the aforementioned DeMarcus Cousins, plus the Bucks signing Langston Galloway. So obviously, Bucks news came out about the night before almost that DeMarcus Cousins, the Bucks didn't plan on didn't plan on resigning or are planning on releasing him. To which he did the next morning. Trevor, walk me through what the Bucks are thinking with this. It feels like we need big men, and we kind of release a former All Star big man who's been playing well lately.
Yeah, it's interesting. It got me at first too. The Bucks released him so that his contract would not become guaranteed, which would count against a luxury tax, which would obviously hurt for multiple reasons. Because a luxury tax isn't just a regular like pay double. Going back to the PJ Tucker saga, a $10 million contract when factoring in the luxury tax would have really cost $40 million a year for PJ Tucker. So it's like exponential growth. So they didn't want that on the salary, and I think they looked at Langston Galloway. They said, "Hey, let's just get some more shooters for as long as we can." 10-day, he does not take the quote unquote cap space that DeMarcus Cousins had. So people saying we dropped Cousins for him. That's not how it works. That's not how 10 days work. But I think Horace is planning a move for a big. I really do because there would be no other reason. And why release DeMarcus? Not only for the books, but his defense inside was lacking. His offense was good. I love the tenacity, but if come playoff time, he's a good backup. But if Brook doesn't come back, he's going to be worthless on our team. So I think they figured let's just cut our losses and go for a guaranteed big if Brook doesn't come back.
Right, and that's the first thing that I thought when I saw the plans to release DeMarcus Cousins. There's like, oh, they must be going after a big man. It doesn't feel like they should be releasing a big man right now with Brook Lopez still out. So I do think you're right too that maybe Langston Galloway is just kind of a contract guy while they keep trying to get this other white whale or whatever, another big guy that could fit the team. But Langston Galloway played in his first game against the Brooklyn Nets when we got a rematch of the Eastern Conference semifinals, um, which was another good game. I mean, this was another good game. The Bucks won this game, went to Brooklyn and won 121-109. Um, Giannis 31, 7, and 9 on 11 of 17 shooting. Bobby Portis playing big like he played big at the end of the year last year with 25, 12, and 2. Chris Middleton added another 20. Wes Matthews 12, Jordan Orr 13, and Rodney Hood 10. So Trevor, obviously this is a game that I'm sure a lot of people were wanting to watch Friday night on ESPN, whatever. This was a fun game for me to watch. Did you have fun watching this game, or walk me through your thoughts when you were watching this one?
It was fun. It's kind of like one of those games, kind of like when Toronto beat us when we didn't have Giannis. it's fun to watch when there are no expectations. Everybody's going
Right.
to talk about Kyrie Irving being out. The Bucks had Drew, George Hill, Dante, Pat, Grayson, and Brooke Lopez out. So not only do we
Hmm.
have two starters out, we basically have our four best bench players out. So seeing them beat the crap out of the Nets kind of reaffirm everything that we've been saying about nobody can stop this Bucks team outside of injuries. It was nice to see, and it just also, we've talked about it. We've written articles about the Lakers. You can't just put star power out there and then crap around them. And we saw that night. I mean, they won by 12. They were up by about 20 for pretty much all the game. So
Yeah, and then on the net side of the ball, other than Kevin Durant, you don't have much. You don't have much coming from everywhere else. I mean, James Harden almost had a triple double, but 16, 9, and 7 on 6 of 15 shooting. Nicholas Claxton is grabbing a bunch of the inside stuff. But outside of Cam Thomas, like that's kind of concerning if you're the Nets. If James Harden isn't playing well, this team may not be as great as we think. That obviously with Kyrie Irving out.
yeah, and obviously Patty Mills is going to be better. He lit us up game one of the season. He was only 1 for 8, 1 for 6 from deep. You're going to see some progression there out of their shooting, but I think this is also a what happens when the refs call the game correctly. Like James Harden, I hate to break it to you, he's not a superstar without the foul calls. And you saw it right here. He only had 3 free throws, and he struggled to even hit 16 points. So they built a team around Durant, a guy who can't play at home, and a guy who is nothing without 10 free throws a game. I don't know if this team even makes the conference finals again.
Does that speak to Durant's inclusion as a 1-2 spot in the MVP voting right now? Because Durant's playing some damn good basketball right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Harden keeps playing like this, I think you could very well make a case for Durant for MVP. I think Giannis the front runner, but if you don't have Durant at 2 at least, if not 1, I don't think we can have a conversation about basketball because he's one or the other in my opinion.
Agreed. And in this game too, we had just talked about the Bucks shooting 68% from the free throw line. This game they shot 17 of 21 for 81%. So they're still working on capitalizing on those opportunities, but getting more than they had before. Bucks shot 36% from the 3-point line, 46% from the field. Trevor, what else do you want to talk about this game? I know it felt like this should have been a big game, but when it was happening, it didn't feel like the intensity was up or anything. I don't know. It felt off, but felt fun to me.
Yeah, I think one of the big things was the Nets only turned it over 10 times, which usually would be bad. James Harden was 5 of them. And, I kind of slammed on him a little bit already, but I mean, this is what we saw from James Harden in game 6 and game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year. This is what we've seen from him in Houston. This is what we've seen from him everywhere. When the lights are the brightest, granted, regular season game, but when the lights are the brightest, he can't be that number 2 guy. So, ironically, what this game has told me is if the Bucks don't have home court against the Nets, that might be advantageous to them.
Yeah, for sure. And then transitioning into our next game, our fifth game of the week. That's actually going on right now. We're against the Charlotte Hornets. Bucks are in Charlotte on a back-to-back. I think we both said on the last show that if they're going to beat the Nets, they're probably going to lose to the Hornets. If they lose to the Nets, they're probably going to beat the Hornets, right? So in about 2.5 hours, we'll see if that prediction comes true. But Bucks are currently up 12-6. 7:18 left in the first. Giannis starting early on the scoring, 6 points. Wes Matthews with a 3. Trevor, it might be easier if we kind of group both these games together. But what do you expect for these two games? I guess a game and a half, if you want to call it that, now against the Hornets.
I mean, if he could just go 1-1, like I think we talked about this past week after last episode. We said if the Bucks can go 2-2, that would be okay, and they won the two arguably hardest games.
Right.
So you got 2 straight games at Charlotte. I'm not going to get too much into the scheduling about how dumb that is to play 2 straight at Charlotte outside of the division. We haven't played the Bulls yet, but beside the point. Just stay healthy because after that second game at Charlotte, a little look ahead. Thursday is Golden State at home. You're going to want to play well for that national TV, TNT. You're going to want to be ready to go. So just stay healthy. Don't put yourself through the gutter too much, and come with one, if not two wins.
For sure. And on top of that, I, the Hornets are a young. I've said that they're a young team. To me, they're like an upgraded Pistons team. You got to imagine they're gonna be ready to run both games. Maybe a little bit more than some veterans that the Bucks have, especially on this. Is a short Eastern Conference road trip, but it feels long because you're playing 3 games in basically 4 days. Um, so with these games, Trevor, I think I agree with you. I'm not expecting much out of either one. To go 1-1 would be great. To go 2-0 would be incredible, and just get back home and rest for 2 days before a huge matchup with Golden State. But the Hornets, they have LaMelo Ball, who you got to imagine Drew Holiday will probably take care of. And then kind of these list of these young guys: Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, all these guys who can just go out there, run and play basketball. So, Trevor, is the youth of Charlotte, does that scare you at all, or what effect does that have on this game?
I think it affects a little bit. Obviously, they're going to be ready to go. Some of the vets, some games probably don't feel as important. You kind of see a little decline in production, but this team hasn't really played anybody of substance outside of Phoenix January 2nd and then Utah December 20th. So, they're ready to go. They want to play somebody good. They got the Bucks 2 games in a row, then they got at Philly. They're just going to be hyped to play in a game that, you know, all intents and purposes means something again.
Right. So as much as I love talking with the Charlotte Hornets, I think it would be more fortuitous for us to talk about that game coming up against Golden State. Um, so Golden State is 29-9, second in the West. Bucks 26-15, third in the East. Golden State traveling across the country. They're coming to Milwaukee. So this is about all the Titans, right, Trevor? What do you expect? Just give me your initial thoughts. I know we have Klay Thompson coming back soon. Who knows if he'll play in this game, or depending on what they're going to do for minutes with him. But just what are your initial thoughts on seeing Golden State? Is that one you're circling on the calendar?
Yes and no. Like I think Golden State Bucks. I think that's the most likely finals matchup.
Hmm.
But I also don't know, and obviously I'll be circling it. I don't know how good this Golden State team is. I don't know how good Phoenix is. I don't know how good Utah is. The West is incredibly weak and pathetic. I mean, you're looking at the 5 seed is the Mavericks at 21-18. They're not very good. I mean, dare I say? So, Golden State has been great to this point. That's fantastic, but they have played in a poor conference. They really haven't played anybody good. So, in a big game against a team that matches up well against them, it's going to be interesting to see how they play. More specifically, Klay Thompson back from injury tomorrow, so he'll be ready to go for Thursday.
Yeah, and on top of that, something that stuck out to me when looking at the matchup stats before this is Golden State is second in the NBA in steals, 9.4 steals per game. Depending on what Drew Holiday does, if Drew Holiday has to take Steph Curry, you got to imagine he's gonna be tired, maybe pick up a foul or two. If he's out and you have Javante Smart running, or even George Hill or whoever, that feels like a couple turnovers right there. If Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton don't have the ball on almost all the possessions.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the whistle is called too.
Right.
Obviously, NBA is historically bad with the whistle, especially prime time games, especially a game that really doesn't mean much. I'm sure the narrative is going to be big around the game. So I'm not saying the refs are going to decide the game, obviously, but I am saying that they're probably going to be the worst refs that the Bucks have seen probably all season, to be honest, because they just have a way of showing up and screwing up big games.
Right. So I know we do this on Lombardi Sweep, but we haven't really done it on this show. But I guess we'll start doing it for big matchups. But what's the key for the Bucks to win this game, Trevor?
Yeah, I think just keeping Steph Curry all things all things the same in check, which is obviously much easier said than done. And he hasn't been good lately, which is concerning because he always does this and then pops off for like 3 nights in a row.
Hmm.
He had, the 28th of December, 23, the first against Utah, 28, and then 9 against the Heat, 14 against the Mavericks. He has hit 2 out of his last 19 threes. So he's going to pop off eventually. We understand that. You just got to make life as much hell as possible so that on the defensive end, he's worn down and we can not just drive past him, but it'll be easier, obviously.
Right, and this kind of felt like a game where the Bucks still had PJ Tucker. You just had PJ Tucker play physical on him, let him pick up fouls, let PJ Tucker get his ankles broken, but just make it tough for Steph to work. But I totally agree with you. Like I think you have to bump Steph early, maybe pick up a foul early on him, set a little message that you can play physical with him, get in his head, and keep making him shoot 2 for 19. I know it's tough, but with the greatest shooter of all time, but you have to do something rather than let him run open.
Well, an interesting thing too is looking at Golden State's schedule. They play at Memphis on Tuesday, so they do have a day in between. But Memphis is a tough team. We all remember the grit and grind years of Memphis. They're going to play you hard. They're going to play you physical. Meanwhile, the Bucks, their last game is at Charlotte Monday. They have that extra day to rest. It's obviously in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's going to be popping, so that will also have an impact that we'll see on the team psyche of Golden State, but also Steph Curry's body, seeing how he's feeling. Hopefully, he drops like 50 on Memphis.
Right. Trevor, what else do you want to talk about with the Warriors? Or should we move on to the last game of the Raptors?
I mean, is Draymond? Draymond's talked about opposing coaches calling him MVP. Obviously, we've seen Andrew. Yeah, I don't know why I want to say Aaron, but Andrew Wiggins has been playing better. Jordan Poole has been playing better. Who do you think is more dangerous? Playoffs, regular season, whatever. Andrew Wiggins or Poole? Obviously, Wiggins is the higher upside, but Poole has been playing fantastic this year.
It feels like Wiggins just because they're getting Klay Thompson back. So you got to imagine he'll slide right back into that Jordan Poole role. But who knows how long it'll be before Klay Thompson is 100% ready. I mean, I saw a stat today that said the last time Klay Thompson played in an NBA game, John Morant wasn't in the league, which is weird to think about. But um, yeah, it's got to be Andrew Wiggins because he's having kind of a not career rebirth, but kind of just add a little something to your career. Moving over to Golden State from Minnesota. What are your thoughts on that? Because that is a good question.
I'm kind of with you. It's really going to be interesting to see how they use Jordan Poole with Klay Thompson coming back.
Yeah,
Uh, because if they put Jordan Poole in the lineup, if Curry or Klay is not out, you're saying Jordan Poole at the 2, Klay at the 3, which, Klay's a great defender, but do you want to put him in foul trouble against Chris Middleton or against other teams' big threes? It'll be interesting. And Wiggins, I love him. But I got to see a little more out of him defending threes as well to really be sold on him. But Poole could be that sneaky guy off the bench that
for
just lights
sure.
you up, almost like a Grayson Allen.
Right, and they have Gary Payton playing well too right now, who just got guaranteed a contract. I think a little informally by Steve Kerr, but that's two solid guards that they have coming up in the second unit if Klay Thompson retakes that two guard role. But Trevor, the Raptors, the last game. I know last time we talked about them, we said they sucked. The Raptors ended up beating us. Is it going to be the same case right now when I say that they suck?
It's going to be so interesting because obviously we have a game off. It's still at home. It's a weird 5:30 time. That doesn't
Yep.
seem right. That doesn't seem right at all. But I mean, it's so weird. There's so many unknowns, right? You'd think with all the guys that have COVID right now, we'd be back, we'd be healthy, we'd blitz them. But the NBA isn't the NFL, and I think that's where the NFL has done a little bit of a better job. I'm not fully understanding the NBA's COVID protocols.
Yeah.
Um, it sounds to me like you can be in it like 3 times,
Right.
which doesn't seem correct at all from what we know. So it should be a win. I'm going to say the Bucks should win by 15, but if the Bucks lose by 4 because one of the big three is out, I wouldn't at all be shocked.
Yeah, I'm like totally in the exact same boat with you. Just wanted to shout out Rudy Gobert, who's in protocols after he started the world lockdown 2 years ago. Um, but anyways, to kind of add on to that, Pascal Siakam had a great game the last time they played. OG Anunoby had a great game. I don't really expect them to have another 30-point night, another 25-point night, and that's really where their scoring came from when the Bucks played them last. So I agree with you. This probably should be a blowout, probably 12 to 15 points somewhere in there. You're right. If one of the Giannis Middleton Holiday is out, 4-3-2 somewhere in there.
Yeah, and Siakam and Anunoby. I mean, it was just a couple years ago that they were supposed to be the guys, the future.
Right.
They have been nothing but treading water, and that hurts me because Siakam was on my fantasy team last season. But it's just it doesn't make sense. There's no growth or progress. So it'll be interesting if they almost look like fish out of water in that game. Just like, oh man, full strength Bucks team. What do we do?
Right. So Trevor, I know we always do this, but what would you be happy with as a record for this week's games?
Oh,
I
that's
should say
tough.
Hornets, Warriors, Raptors out of three there.
Not counting tonight. Okay, yeah,
No.
that's fair. Um, I'd say you got to go 2-1, right? We're not looking for perfection. I don't think Bucks fans think the Bulls will keep on this tear, so you just got to be better than average. 2-1 is all you need. Um, the only loss should probably be coming in that Golden State game, unless, of course, you win tonight against Charlotte. Then I can see you being tripped up there, but you should be easily winning too.
Yeah, I think you should easily be winning two, and I do think it's a very good possibility they could win three. Like we said, if only the Warriors points are generated out of Steph Curry. I think that helps the Bucks because no one else is going, and you can just chase him around. Steph Curry's going to get tired on offense, on defense, especially if he's playing physical Drew Holiday when Curry's on defense and Holiday's on offense. But I agree with you. 2-1, fine. Don't think I'd be terribly mad in 1-2. But I would be not. I would be very disappointed in 0 if this trip ended 0-3.
I
But I
mean,
think.
like
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like everything this season, with everything popping up, it's all about the circumstances, right?
You're right.
Like, if you would have told me we would have lost to the Pistons and the Raptors this past week, I would have been pissed off. But
Right. Just it's kind of like the NFL. You don't apologize for any wins in the NBA, right?
nope,
Um, it does suck when you lose to the Raptors, though, because they will let you know. But Trevor, other than that, is there anything else you want to talk about Bucks from last week, for this coming week, for this game we got going on right now? I'll get a score update here. 29-19 Bucks with 2:33 left in the first.
I'm just surprised there aren't more nationally televised game. Granted, this is 2 weeks down the line, but January 28th, we're playing the Knicks. That's on ESPN. We're playing at Cleveland. They're better in New York. That's not on national TV. Chicago, January 21st. That's not on national TV. Memphis, the 19th. But yet Atlanta's on TNT. It's so confusing. The NBA needs to start flexing these games.
You're right. Um, yeah, I've always wondered that too. Like, it feels like NBA you can't really have a set schedule because it's so fluid and everything's moving all the time. You kind of have to write the schedule as you go, if you will. I know you can never do that, but they got to figure out something to do something like that. But with that, Trevor, anything else before we get out of here? All right,
Nope.
that is it for us on this lovely Saturday night. Tune in to Lombardi Sweep we got going every Wednesday. I don't know if there any other shows going on right now.
Not that I can think of. No, actually.
Might be just us two. Um, Check out all the articles we got coming out. We got a new This Day in History series going where write about one big sports topic that happened maybe 15 years ago, maybe 100 years ago. It's kind of the luck of the draw when you read the article about it. But follow everyone on Twitter. Follow Flurry Sports, and that is it for us. Have a good one.
Have a good one.